My family talked me out of a prenup. Now they're shocked. They said, prenups are for people planning to fail. I signed nothing, just love and a venue contract. 3 years later, a private equity deal wired $3.2 million to my husband. At 9:41 a.m., the judge turned from his speech about family money to my receipts, and the room remembered who asked for a prenup first. I'm Elena, 31 when we got engaged. My husband is Ben, 33. His parents, Janet and Ron, run Cedar and Amp, Coast Fixtures, a regional lighting supply company. After the proposal, we had cake in the church basement. Someone said trust 17 times. No one said disclosure. I loved Ben. I also loved clarity. My parents divorced when I was 12. A mediator saved our holidays. Paper is not pessimism. It's planning. I asked for a simple prenup, a full financial disclosure both ways. A separate property stays separate, premarital assets, inheritances. A marital property equals salary, savings, and business growth during marriage. A debt separation and a basic spousal support framework tied to years. I emailed a one-pager with 3 family law firm links and wrote, happy to keep it fair, I want this to protect both of us. Ben said, sure. Then the group chat lit up. Janet, honey, prenups are for people planning to fail. Ron, lawyers make money sowing doubt. Sister Kara, if we're family, we don't need contracts. Aunt Marla, God doesn't bless paperwork. Brunch turned into a tribunal. I was offered alternatives to law, a promise, a prayer, a Pinterest board. Ben said, let's not make this a thing. My folks don't do prenups. I should have held the line. I yielded to love and the looming florist deposit. We signed a venue contract. We did not sign a prenup. We split costs like moderns, my savings plus his bonuses. I kept receipts, I always do. On a napkin Janet wrote, what's ours is yours, then tucked it into my palm like a blessing. I put the napkin in a folder labeled engagement. Not because I'm petty. Because paper remembers. Cedar Coast was solid but sleepy. Ben had ideas, e-com, MRO contracts, a green build line. Nights and weekends, I edited pitch decks, built spreadsheets, designed a Shopify pilot, and drove to 3 trade shows on my PTO. I was never on payroll, we're a family business. Ben's shares? A mix of the 10% he had before marriage and restricted units granted during marriage for growth milestones. I asked for the grant docs. We'll do that later, Ron waved me off. Quick glossary, check your state, rules vary, separate property, what you owned before marriage, and some gifts/inheritances. A marital/community property, what you earn/acquire during marriage. A commingling, mixing assets so you can't tell what's what. A tracing, following money/paper to prove what's separate. Or marital. A active versus passive growth, value that rises from work versus from the market. No prenup means you're living under your state's default rules. I didn't fear that. I respected it. Spring of year 3, Ben came home fizzing, private equity wants to buy us. An LOI at a multiple that made Uncle Gary whistle. Terms included, cash at close wired to shareholders. A escrow holdback pending reps/warranties. A 2-year earnout tied to EBITDA targets. Ben's allocation, between the premarital 10% and the units granted during marriage, looked like a lottery ticket. At dinner, Ron raised a glass, to family money staying in the family. I sliced the lasagna and wrote in my notes, when did Ben's marital units vest? Like and subscribe. New narrated episode every day. 2 weeks pre-closing, Janet invited me for tea. Sweetheart, to keep things simple, let's do a postnup that says the sale proceeds are Ben's separate. We'll make you whole in other ways. Lake weekends, a bigger ring. I smiled the way women smile when their pulse spikes. I asked for a prenup to clarify this. We skipped it. She blinked. You wouldn't take from our company. I contributed to growth during the marriage, and units were granted during the marriage. We'll do whatever is fair under the law. That night Ben said, it's not like you were on payroll. That's not the only standard, I said. and emailed a family law attorney. My attorney asked for proof of marital effort and timelines. I built a binder, Tab A, work product, my redlined pitch decks in Google Drive timestamped, Shopify admin logs with my user, vendor email threads where I negotiated net 30 terms. Tab B, time travel, calendar invites, trade show badges, hotel receipts, mileage logs. Tab C, equity docs, board minutes granting Ben RSUs/units during marriage, vesting schedules, emails praising Ben Elena's e-com push. Tab D, money flows, deposits to joint accounts from sale proceeds, escrow. Statements, tax forms. Tab E, napkin, what's ours is yours. Paper doesn't need adjectives. It needs dates. At mediation, their side argued, a family business started before marriage, so it's all separate. She wasn't on payroll. We're church folk, we meant to be fair. Our side answered with law and receipts. Units granted and value created during marriage have a marital component, especially when driven by active efforts. My unpaid work and Ben's marital labor increased value. That growth is not all passive. Funds landed in joint accounts, liquid proceeds, were used for marital expenses, hello, commingling. We proposed a clean formula, carve out Ben's premarital 10% and passive appreciation, allocate a fair share of the value created during marriage, plus a framework if the earnout hits. They countered with a gift of a car and lifetime lake access. I asked for numbers, not nouns. Janet cornered me in the hallway. If you take this to court, people will think you married him for money. I married him for life, I said, which includes paper. We didn't settle. Not that day. Ben's side, family money heritage, she wasn't on payroll, her help was marital support, not business labor. Our side, 5 minutes, 3 exhibits. Our equity timing, grant docs and vesting schedules during marriage, closing statement, escrow and earnout terms. Our active efforts, my timestamped files, admin logs, vendor emails, travel receipts. Our commingling, deposits of sale proceeds into joint accounts, funds used for marital mortgage and taxes. I didn't say, I told you to sign a prenup. I said, without a prenup, we follow the default rules. Here is the paper. The judge did not care for speeches. He cared for classification and allocation. Premarital shares and their passive growth equals Ben's separate. Units granted/vested during marriage, plus value attributable to active marital efforts, are marital. Liquid proceeds placed in joint accounts and used for marital expenses are marital. Earnout, if achieved, a defined percentage is marital, if not, nothing owed. Numbers landed. Fair, not cruel. Enough for a down payment on a home in my name and a college fund that breathes. In the hallway, Janet's face held 30 years of certainty meeting 5 minutes of paper. She didn't speak. I didn't gloat. I went home and labeled a folder, postmortem, lessons. Saying no prenup is still signing something, the default rules of your state. If people pressure you to skip clarity, they're voting for ambiguity. Ask for disclosure, write it down, and protect both sides from kitchen table myths. If you could put 3 clauses into a fair prenup/postnup, what would they be and why? If this helped, please subscribe. New narrated story every day.